The galaxy thought humans were weak. For 120 years, every alien species believed the same thing. Humans did not fight. Humans did not threaten. Humans only talked and traded and smiled. The galaxy was wrong. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Silent Dawn, looking out at the endless stars. He was 63 years old with gray hair and calm eyes. In his 40 years of military service, he had never fired a weapon at another living being. His fleet was called the Silent Fleet because it never made noise. It never fought. It only watched and waited. "Admiral," said his second officer, "another report from the outer colonies. They raided 3 more transport ships yesterday." Park nodded slowly. He had heard this report many times before. The Dominion had been attacking human ships and colonies for decades. They were in species with hard shells and sharp claws. They believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. They saw humans as prey. "How many dead?" the admiral asked quietly. 47 crew members, 12 passengers, 3 children. Park closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered every number, every life. He kept a private file on his personal computer with every name of every human killed by the list was very long now. "Send the report to Earth Command," he said, "and to Ambassador." On the other side of human space, Ambassador was preparing for another day at the Galactic Council. She was 51 years old with long black hair that she kept in a simple style. Her face showed kindness, but her eyes showed something else, something patient, something waiting. The Galactic Council was the governing body of known space. Hundreds of species sent representatives to the great station that floated between star systems. Here, they made laws, settled disputes, and decided the fate of worlds. Humans had joined the Council 120 years ago, hoping to find friendship among the stars. They found something else instead. "The Council recognizes the representative from Earth," announced the speaker, a tall creature named OK with blue skin and 4 arms. Stood up from her seat. Around her, hundreds of alien diplomats watched with bored expressions. Some were already laughing quietly. They knew what was coming. The human was going to complain again. "Honored council members," began, "I come before you today to present our 47th formal protest against the Dominion." Laughter spread through the chamber. The ambassador, a large with clicking mandibles, made a sound of amusement. "The humans are crying again," someone said loudly. Continued as if she had not heard. "In the past month alone, they have attacked 12 human vessels, killed 231 civilians, and raided 2 colony worlds. We have evidence. We have witnesses. We have the bodies of our dead." "And what do you want us to do about it?" asked the ambassador. His voice was like grinding stones. "Your kind is too weak to defend yourselves. Perhaps you should evolve better." More laughter filled the chamber. Looked at the ambassador with her patient eyes. "We want justice," she said simply. "We want the attacks to stop. We want the council to enforce its own laws." Speaker OK made a dismissive gesture with his 4 arms. "The council cannot interfere in disputes between species that refuse to defend themselves. Perhaps if humanity showed some strength, they would respect you more." "We have shown restraint," said. "There is a difference." "Restraint?" The ambassador laughed again. "You mean weakness. Everyone knows humans forgot how to fight. You are traders and builders, nothing more. You should thank us for only taking a little. We could take everything." Said nothing. She simply gathered her documents and returned to her seat. As she sat down, she typed a short message on her personal device. "Meeting failed, as expected. Continuing patience protocol." The message went to Earth, to a secure room deep underground. Their general read it and nodded. He was 60 years old with a face and hands that had known hard work. Unlike the admiral, unlike the ambassador, looked like a soldier. But he too had never started a war. "How long do we wait?" asked his assistant. "As long as it takes," replied, "or until they cross the line." "What line, sir?" The general did not answer. He turned to a large screen that showed a map of the outer star systems. Red dots marked human colonies. Blue dots marked something else. Hundreds of blue dots, hidden in asteroid fields and empty space. The galaxy did not know about the blue dots. The galaxy did not know what humans had been building for the past 100 years. Had a daughter. Her name was, and she was 32 years old. She lived on a beautiful agricultural world called Nu. She had a husband and 2 children. She sent her father pictures every week of her garden, her family, her peaceful life. Nu was home to 80 million people. They grew food that fed dozens of human worlds. They had schools and hospitals and parks where children played. They had no weapons. They had no soldiers. They had only farmers and teachers and families who wanted to live in peace. The general looked at a picture of his on his desk. Then he looked back at the map. Far away in space, a decision was being made. The High Command had grown tired of small raids. They wanted something bigger. They wanted to show the galaxy what happened to weak species. They wanted to make an example. New, said High Commander, pointing at a map. Rich with resources, weak in defense. 80 million humans with no military presence. We will take it. The humans will protest, said one of his officers. Let them protest, clicked his mandibles in amusement. What else can they do? They will complain to the council. The council will do nothing, and we will have a new world full of slaves and food. The fleet began to gather. 100 warships, more than enough to destroy any human defense force. Not that humans had defense forces. Everyone knew that. The announcement came 3 days later. The Dominion declared that Nu was now territory. The humans living there had 30 days to evacuate. Anyone remaining after 30 days would be considered property. Ambassador heard the news in her office on the council station. She sat very still for a long time. Then she sent a message to Earth. They have chosen Nu, 80 million lives. Please advise. The response came from General himself. We continue patience protocol. Begin evacuation procedures. Pray they do not cross the line. What is the line? Asked. The general's response was simple. The line is when we cannot forgive. On Nu, 80 million people received the news. Some packed their belongings and prepared to leave. Others refused. This was their home. Their parents had built this world. Their children had been born here. They would not run. A young officer named Captain Shin was stationed at Nu's small communication outpost. She was 30 years old with short hair and determined eyes. When the evacuation order came, she looked at it for a long moment. Then she deleted it from her screen. I am not leaving, she said to her team. This is our home. Around her, other officers nodded. They were not soldiers. They were communication officers, engineers, teachers in uniform. But they were human. And humans, despite what the galaxy believed, knew how to stand their ground. The countdown began. 30 days until they arrived. 30 days until the galaxy would learn the truth about humanity. 30 days until a line would be crossed that could never be uncrossed. And in the darkness of space, in hidden shipyards that no one knew existed, the silent fleet continued to grow. 50,000 ships, 100 years of preparation, waiting for the day that humanity prayed would never come. The day of war. They had promised 30 days. They gave 15. High Commander said it was a schedule change. He said the humans should have moved faster. He said it was their own fault for being so slow. Captain Shin was eating breakfast when the alarm started. She dropped her food and ran to the communication center. Her team was already there, faces pale with fear. How many ships? She asked. 112, said her second officer. They will be in orbit in 4 hours. Looked at the screens. 112 warships against a planet with no weapons. 80 million people with nowhere to run. The evacuation had only moved 2 million people off-world. 78 million remained. Send a message to Earth, she said. Tell them what is happening, tell them everything. The message flew across space at the speed of light. It reached Earth in 6 hours. By then, they were already in orbit around Nu. General received the message in his underground command center. His hands shook slightly as he read it. His daughter was on Nu. His were on Nu. Sir, said his assistant, they are broadcasting a message to the planet. Show me. The screen lit up with the image of High Commander. His face showed no emotion, but his voice was full of cruel joy. Attention, human animals, said. Your time is up. You were told to leave. You chose to stay. Now you will face the consequences. This is what happens to species that are too weak to matter. The first bombs fell on Nu's largest city. Watch from the communication center as bright lights appeared in the sky. Each light was a bomb. Each bomb killed hundreds. The city of Prime had 12 million people. In the first hour, 2 million of them died. She kept recording. She kept sending messages. The galaxy needed to see this. Earth needed to see this. Captain, said one of her officers, tears streaming down her face, the hospital district is gone. The schools are gone. They are targeting civilian centers. felt something cold settle in her chest. They were not trying to conquer. They were trying to kill. They were trying to make a message written in human blood. "Keep recording," she said. "The universe will know what they did." They broadcasted their attack across the galaxy. They turned it into entertainment. Alien species in hundreds of star systems watched as human cities burned. Some watched with horror. Some watched with amusement. They called it the human show. "Watch the weak ones run," said the announcer. "Watch them burn. This is what happens to species that forget their place." On the council station, Ambassador watched the broadcast in her office. Her hands gripped the edge of her desk until her knuckles turned white. She saw children running through burning streets. She saw hospitals exploding. She saw people dying while aliens laughed. Something changed in her eyes. The patience was still there, but now there was something else. Something that had been sleeping for 120 years. "Ma'am," said her assistant, "the council is calling an emergency session. They want to discuss the situation." "The situation," repeated. Her voice was very quiet. "They want to discuss the situation while our children burn." She stood up slowly. She walked to her closet and took out a small box she had never opened before. Inside was a single document. It had been prepared 100 years ago, signed by every human leader since, and updated every year. It was humanity's declaration of war. Had carried this document for 20 years. She had prayed every day that she would never have to use it. That prayer was over now. Anew, the bombing continued for 3 days. When it finally stopped, the planet was silent. Cities that had held millions were now craters. Farmland that had fed worlds was now ash. The beautiful blue sky was now gray with smoke. The final count was 2.3 million dead. Men, women, children, elderly, that had not cared. They had killed everyone they could find. Captain Shin survived. Her communication center was deep underground, protected by the rock above it. She emerged 3 days later into a world she did not recognize. She walked through the ruins of Prime. She saw toys in the rubble. She saw family photographs scattered in the ash. She saw bodies that no one had buried yet. "I am still here," she said into her communicator. "New is destroyed, but some of us survived. Please send help. Please send someone." Her message reached Earth. It reached Admiral Park on his flagship. It reached General in his command center. The general was looking at his computer screen. A message had arrived from New's emergency system. It was a list of confirmed dead. His eyes scanned the names until he found what he was looking for. Age 32, deceased. Age 8, deceased. Age 5, deceased. His daughter, gone. General sat very still for a long time. His officers watched him, afraid to speak. Finally, he said one word. "Enough." He pressed a button on his desk. Throughout human space, in hidden bases and secret shipyards, alarms began to sound. The blue dots on his map started to move. The Galactic Council was in chaos. Hundreds of diplomats were talking at once. Some were angry, some were scared, some were still laughing at the human show. Then the doors opened. An ambassador walked in. She was different now. Her face was calm, but there was fire in her eyes. She walked slowly to the center of the chamber. Every alien stopped talking. Something about her silence commanded attention. "The representative from Earth," said Speaker OK nervously. "We were just discussing how to respond to the unfortunate events on." "Unfortunate events," interrupted. Her voice was soft but clear. "You call the murder of 2.3 million people an unfortunate event." Now," said the ambassador, "let us not be dramatic. It was a military operation. Some losses were expected." "Children," said. "You killed children, you bombed hospitals, you attacked schools, you turned our suffering into entertainment. They should have evacuated faster." Turned to look at the ambassador. Her eyes were steady and cold. "For 120 years," she said, "we asked for peace, we asked for justice. We came to this council 47 times. We showed you evidence. We showed you the bodies of our dead, and every time you laughed." She began to walk slowly around the chamber, her eyes moving from face to face. "You called us weak because we did not fight. You called us prey because we chose patience. You thought our kindness was foolishness. You were wrong." She stopped in the center of the chamber. The silence was total. "Humans are not weak. We simply believed that war was too terrible to choose lightly. We believed that every life had value. We believed that even our enemies could become friends. For 120 years, we held onto that belief. She reached into her coat and pulled out the document. But you killed our children, you burned our homes, you laughed while our families died, and now our belief has changed. She placed the document on the central table. It was a single page with simple words. This is Earth's formal declaration of war against the Dominion. The chamber exploded with noise. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. The ambassador stood up, his mandibles clicking with rage. War, you dare threaten us. We will destroy your entire species. We will burn every human world. You have no army, you have no fleet. You have nothing. Smiled, it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. You are right, she said. We have no army that you know about. We have no fleet that you have seen. For 100 years, while you laughed at us, we have been preparing. Not for conquest, not for glory. Simply for the day when patience was no longer possible. She turned to face the entire council. Every species here thought humans were weak. You all watched the human show and did nothing. Remember this moment. Remember that you could have stopped this. Remember that we gave you 120 years to choose peace. She walked toward the door. At the threshold, she paused. They crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. Now they will learn what humans do when we finally decide to fight. And the galaxy will learn why we tried so hard to avoid it. She left, the doors closed behind her. In the silence that followed, the ambassador laughed nervously. She is bluffing, he said. Humans cannot fight, everyone knows this. Speaker OK was not so sure. He had seen something in the human ambassador's eyes, something ancient, something patient, something that had finally awakened. Somewhere in deep space, 50,000 human warships began to move. Their engines lit up the darkness like angry stars. The war had begun. The galaxy thought the war would last 3 weeks. Every military expert said the same thing. Humans had no real fleet. Humans had no weapons. Humans would surrender before the first battle ended. They were wrong. High Commander gathered his forces at the nebula. 10,000 warships, the largest fleet in their history. Enough firepower to destroy a dozen worlds. He stood on the bridge of his flagship and waited for the human fleet to arrive. How many ships do they have? He asked his intelligence officer. Our spies report maybe 500 combat vessels, the officer said. Old designs, weak weapons, they are no threat. Clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. Then this will be easy. We will crush them here, then move on to Earth. The human will burn like new. His officers cheered. The war drums began to beat. Then the sensors started screaming. Commander, shouted a technician. Ships incoming, many ships. How many? The technician's voice cracked with fear. Thousands, tens of thousands, they are everywhere. The darkness of space began to glow. First it was a few points of light, then hundreds, then thousands. Human ships emerged from hidden positions throughout the nebula. They came from asteroid fields and gas clouds and places they never thought to look. Fleet Admiral sat in the command chair of the Dawn's Justice. She was 55 years old with silver hair and eyes like steel. She had spent 30 years preparing for this day. Every ship, every weapon, every strategy, she had helped design them all. How many ships in our fleet, Admiral? Asked her first officer. 53,412, she replied. More than 5 times the force. They thought we had 500. They thought what we wanted them to think, allowed herself a small smile. For 100 years, every peaceful trade ship was gathering intelligence. Every cultural exchange was studying their weaknesses. Every diplomatic mission was mapping their defenses. We knew this day might come. We prepared for it. She pressed a button on her chair. Her voice broadcast across all frequencies, reaching not just her fleet but also the ships in the watching galaxy. This is Fleet Admiral of the United Earth Navy. I speak to the Dominion. You killed 2.3 million of our people. You bombed our hospitals. You murdered our children. You turned our suffering into entertainment. She paused. The entire galaxy was listening. We remember every name. We will carry them with us into battle, and we will not stop until justice is done. She turned off the broadcast and looked at her officers. Begin the attack. The human ships moved like a wave of light. They were faster than the expected. Their weapons hit harder than the believed possible, and their pilots flew with a fury that no one had ever seen from humans. High Commander watched in horror as his fleet began to fall apart. Human missiles tore through shields like paper. Human guns punched holes in armor. Human fighters moved so fast they seemed to disappear and reappear. "What are those weapons?" he demanded. "Our shields should stop them." "Commander, we do not know. Our intelligence has no record of these systems." Engineer Lee had designed those weapons. He sat in a quiet room on Earth, watching the battle through satellite feeds. He was 60 years old, a man who had never wanted to build things that killed. But after his family died in a raid 20 years ago, he had changed his mind. "Gravity cannons," he said to himself, watching a battleship collapse inward. "Quantum torpedoes, adaptive targeting systems, 100 years of work. I hope it is enough." On the battlefield, they tried to fight back. They fired their weapons, but the human ships were too fast. They launched their fighters, but the human pilots were better. They called for retreat, but there was nowhere to run. Admiral watched the command ship try to escape. Her officers looked at her, waiting for orders. "Should we let them go?" asked her first officer. "No," she said. "They did not let our people go. Track them, disable their engines. We will need their commander for the tribunals." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 3,000 ships were destroyed. Another 4,000 had surrendered. The rest had fled in different directions, hopping to disappear. The human fleet had lost 47 ships. Across the galaxy, aliens watched their screens in disbelief. The species they had mocked for 120 years had just won the largest space battle in recorded history. The species they called the weak ones had crushed the mighty war machine like it was nothing. On the council station, Speaker OK received reports from his intelligence services. His 4 hands trembled as he read them. "How is this possible?" he asked. "Where did they get these ships? Where did they get these weapons?" His advisor shook his head. "We do not know. They have been building in secret for decades at least, maybe longer. Every scan we did of human space, every spy we sent, they showed us only what they wanted us to see. They fooled us, they fooled everyone." "Yes, Speaker, they did." OK sat down heavily. He remembered all the times he had laughed at the human ambassador, all the times he had dismissed their complaints, all the times he had called them weak. "What have we done?" he whispered. High Commander sat in a cell on a human ship. His armor had been taken. His weapons had been confiscated. He was just an insect in a box now, waiting to see what the humans would do. A door opened and Admiral walked in. She carried a small tablet in her hand. "High Commander," she said, "I am here to inform you that you will be tried for war crimes against humanity, the attack on Nu, the murder of civilians, the destruction of protected targets." "You cannot try me," said. "I am a prisoner of war. The conventions protect me." "The conventions protect soldiers who follow the rules of war. You attacked schools. You bombed hospitals. You killed children and broadcast it as entertainment." His voice was cold. "You are not a soldier. You are a criminal." She turned to leave, then stopped. "I have something to show you." She held up the tablet. On it was a picture of a little girl, maybe 5 years old, holding a flower and smiling at the camera. Her name was, she lived on Nu. She liked to pick flowers in her grandmother's garden. She wanted to be a pilot when she grew up. She swiped to another picture. A boy about 8 building something with toy blocks. Her brother, he was 8 years old. He loved building things. He wanted to be an engineer like his father. She swiped again. A woman in her 30s laughing with her children. Their mother, she was a teacher. She taught history to high school students. She wrote letters to her father every week. "Why are you showing me this?" demanded. "Because you killed them. Because you killed 2.3 million people and never learned their names." Put the tablet away. "We know every name. We will remember every face. That is the difference between us and you." She left the cell. The door closed behind her. The news of the human victory spread across the galaxy. Other species that had been attacked by them began to hope. Maybe they could be free too. Maybe the humans would help them. But other species felt something else. They felt fear. If humans could hide this much power for this long, what else were they hiding? What else could they do? On Earth, Prime Minister O addressed the planet. He was 61 years old, a tired man who had hoped to be remembered as a leader of peace. Now he would be remembered as a war leader. "Citizens of Earth," he said, "today we won a great victory, but I do not feel joy. I feel only sadness for what has been lost and determination to ensure it never happens again." He looked directly into the camera. We did not want this war. We spent 120 years trying to avoid it. We suffered insults and raids and death because we believed peace was possible. We were wrong about but we were not wrong about peace." He paused. "When this war ends, and it will end, we will not become the monsters who attacked us. We will not bomb their civilians. We will not kill their children. We will be what we have always been, humans. Flawed, angry, grieving, but still human." In her underground bunker on Nu, Captain Shin watched the speech with the other survivors. They had been rescued 2 days ago. They were safe now, but none of them felt safe. "Do you think we will win?" asked one of her officers. "We will win," said, "but I do not know what it will cost us." She looked out a window at the sky. Somewhere up there, human ships were moving toward space. Somewhere up there, the war was continuing. She thought about her family who had died in the bombing. She thought about her friends who had disappeared in the fire. She thought about all the people she would never see again. Then she thought about the future, about a galaxy where humans were no longer laughed at, about a universe where peace might actually be possible. "We will make it worth the cost," she said. "We have to." The human fleet entered space. Their weapons were ready. Their pilots were determined. And in their hearts they carried the names of 2.3 million people who would never be forgotten. They had awakened a sleeping giant. Now they would face the consequences. The human fleet entered space like a storm. They moved fast and hit hard, but they did not hit everything. Lieutenant Bay noticed this first. She was 28 years old, a fighter pilot with quick hands and quicker reflexes. Her brother had died on Nu, one of the 2.3 million names that humans would never forget. She had joined the war to honor his memory. She had expected to burn worlds like they had burned hers. But the orders were different. "Lieutenant," said her squadron commander over the radio, "target the military station only. Do not fire on the civilian transports." Sir looked at her sensors. There were civilian ships fleeing the battle, easy targets. "They killed our civilians. Why are we protecting theirs?" "Because we are not them. Engage military targets only. That is a direct order." Took a deep breath and followed her orders. She destroyed the military station with precision strikes. She watched the civilian transports escape, and she felt something strange, not satisfaction, but something close to pride. This was how humans fought. The campaign into space took 3 months. The human fleet destroyed military bases, shipyards, and weapon factories. They captured commanders and soldiers. They seized records and evidence, but they did not bomb cities. They did not attack hospitals. They did not touch schools. Before every battle, they broadcast names. The names of the dead from Nu, 2.3 million names, read aloud in a steady voice while human ships prepared to attack. Age 5, age 42, Park age 17. The soldiers heard these names. At first they laughed. Then they felt uncomfortable. Then they began to understand what they had done. The public did not know about Nu. Their government had told them a different story. They said humans attacked first. They said the fleet was defending itself. They said the war was necessary for survival. But humans broadcast the truth. They sent recordings of the attack to every communication channel. They showed the bombs falling on schools. They showed the hospitals exploding. They showed children running through burning streets. The people watched in horror. "We did this," a young asked her mother. "Our soldiers killed children." "No," her mother said. "No, that cannot be true. The government would not lie." But the recordings were clear. The evidence was everywhere. And slowly, the public began to question everything they had been told. On Earth, Prime Minister O worked without sleep. The war was going well, but wars always had costs. Every day brought reports of human ships lost, human pilots killed, human resources spent. He read every report. He felt every death. "Sir," said his assistant, "the Galactic Council wants to negotiate a ceasefire." "What are their terms?" "They want both sides to stop fighting. They want them to keep their territory. They want to move forward together." O laughed bitterly. "Move forward. They want us to forget 2.3 million dead. They want us to pretend nothing happened. They want the easy peace." "What should I tell them?" "Tell them our terms have not changed. Complete disarmament, war crime tribunals for those responsible, reparations for the families of the dead, nothing less." The Galactic Council refused. They called the human terms too harsh. They said humans were being unreasonable. They said it was time to heal. Former ambassador now served on Earth's War Council. She listened to the council's messages and felt the old patience stir in her heart. But the patience was different now. It was not the patience of hope. It was the patience of determination. They still do not understand, she said to her colleagues. They think we will get tired. They think we will accept a bad peace because war is hard. They do not know us at all. What do you suggest? Asked General. We continue until our terms are met, not a day longer, not a day shorter. The general nodded. Since losing his daughter and on new, he had become very quiet. He did his job with perfect precision, but the light in his eyes had gone out. Lieutenant Bay became famous during the war. They called her the Ghost of Nu because she appeared from nowhere, struck with deadly accuracy, and disappeared before they could respond. She destroyed 47 warships and never lost a single pilot under her command. But she did not feel like a hero. One night she sat alone in the pilot's lounge of her carrier ship. She was looking at a photograph of her brother. He had been 25 years old when he died. He had been planning to get married that summer. Do you think he would be proud of me? She asked a fellow pilot who sat down beside her. I think he would be proud that you fight with honor, the pilot said. You could burn their cities, you could kill their children, but you do not. Sometimes I want to. His voice was quiet. Sometimes I want to make them feel what we felt. Is that wrong? It is human. The question is not what you want to do. The question is what you choose to do. Looked at her brother's photograph again. He had always been kind. He had always believed in doing the right thing. If he were here, he would tell her to fight hard but fight fair. He would hate this war, she said, but he would hate it more if we became like them. The High Command met in secret. Their fleet was almost gone. Their military was broken. Their people were starting to protest against the government. High Commander was in human custody, waiting for trial. Everything was falling apart. We must surrender, said one commander. There is no other choice. Never, said another. We will fight to the last soldier. What soldiers? The humans have destroyed our military. Our shipyards are gone. Our weapons factories are rubble. We have nothing left. The argument went back and forth for hours. Finally, they made a decision. They would gather every remaining ship at the. They would make a final stand. They would rather die fighting than surrender. The human fleet learned of this decision. Admiral called a meeting with her senior officers. They are gathering at there, she said. This is their final stand. They have maybe 3,000 ships left. Old ships, damaged ships, ships crewed by untrained volunteers. It will not be a battle. It will be a slaughter. Then we should attack quickly, said one officer. End this war. We could, agreed, or we could offer them a choice. What kind of choice? Surrender or die, clear and simple. No tricks, no deception, just the truth. She looked around the room at her officers. These were people who had lost friends and family to the. They had every right to want vengeance, but they were still humans. We did not start this war for revenge, she said. We started this war for justice. Justice means giving our enemies a chance to choose, even if they do not deserve it. The officers voted. The decision was unanimous. They would offer surrender first. On Earth, Prime Minister O made one final address before the last battle. Citizens of Earth, he said, the war is almost over. Tomorrow our fleet will face the last forces at there. Many of our soldiers may die, but the end is in sight. He paused, his tired eyes looking directly at the camera. When we began this war, I said we would not become our enemies. I said we would fight with honor. I am proud to say we have kept that promise. Our soldiers have destroyed military targets, but they have not touched civilians. They have captured criminals, but they have not tortured them. They have fought with fury, but also with discipline. He took a deep breath. Tomorrow, we will offer them a chance to surrender. They probably will not take it. They will fight, and they will lose, and many on both sides will die. But at least they will have the choice. That is more than they gave the people of Nu. He stood up straight. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember this, we did not want this war. We spent 120 years trying to prevent it. But when they crossed the line, when they killed our children and laughed, we showed the galaxy what humans really are. Not weak, not helpless, just patient, and very, very dangerous when that patience runs out. He ended his address. Around the world, humans waited for news from the front. And in space, the human fleet moved toward the 50,000 ships carrying millions of soldiers, scientists and engineers and farmers who had become warriors, teachers and doctors and artists who had learned to fight. They did not want to kill, but they would not stop until justice was done. Lieutenant Bay sat in her fighter, checking her weapons one last time. Around her, thousands of other pilots did the same. Tomorrow would be the biggest battle of the war. Tomorrow would decide everything. She touched her brother's photograph, which she had taped to her instrument panel. "I will see you soon," she whispered, "one way or another." Then she closed her eyes and waited for dawn. It was beautiful. Green continents floated on blue oceans under a pale yellow sun. From orbit it looked peaceful. It looked innocent. It looked nothing like a world that had ordered the deaths of millions. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Silent Dawn. He had commanded this fleet for decades, but he had never fired its weapons in anger. Today that would change. Today he would lead the final battle of the war. "Admiral," said his communications officer, "we are in position. 50,000 ships ready for your command." "Send the message," Park said. "Give them their choice." The human broadcast reached every ship in the fleet. It reached every city on the. It reached every alien species watching from across the galaxy. "This is Admiral Park of the United Earth Navy. We address the people and military of the Dominion. Your fleet is surrounded. Your military is broken. You have no chance of victory." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But we did not come here to destroy you. We came here for justice. Surrender now and your civilians will not be harmed. Your soldiers will be treated with dignity. Your leaders will face trial for their crimes. Refuse, and we will have no choice but to attack. You have 1 hour to decide." The human fleet waited. In the command center, chaos ruled. The remaining commanders argued and shouted. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to run, even though there was nowhere to run. Then a new voice spoke. It was calm and clear, cutting through the noise like a knife. "Enough." Everyone turned. A female stood in the doorway. Her name was, and she was the highest-ranking official left after the military commanders had fled or been captured. She was not a soldier. She was a diplomat like the human. She had spent her life trying to prevent exactly this situation. "We will surrender," she said. "We cannot," shouted a commander. We do not surrender." "We are dead if we do not." Walk to the center of the room. "Look at your screens, 50,000 human ships. We have 3,000, most of them damaged. Our shields cannot stop their weapons. Our pilots cannot match their skill. If we fight, we will all die. Our will burn like new burned. At least we will die with honor." "There is no honor in extinction." His voice was hard. "There is no honor in getting our people killed because we are too proud to admit we lost." She looked around the room. "We started this war. We killed their children. We broadcast their suffering as entertainment. Now we must face the consequences. That is justice. That is what we deserve." The room fell silent. "I will contact the humans," said. "I will offer our unconditional surrender. Anyone who wants to die fighting can take their own ships and do so. But our world, our people, will not burn for your pride." One by one, the commanders lowered their heads. They knew she was right. They knew there was no other way. Walked to the communication console and sent her message. "Human fleet, this is acting leader of the Dominion. We accept your terms. We surrender unconditionally. Please do not harm our civilians." On the Silent Dawn, Admiral Park received the message. He closed his eyes for a moment. The war was over. The killing could stop. "Acknowledge the surrender," he said. "Begin occupation protocols, and tell the medical ships to prepare. They will need humanitarian aid." "Sir," his officer looked confused. "We are helping them. They are beaten. They are starving. Their economy is destroyed. We did not fight this war to create another catastrophe." Park looked out at the. "We fought this war for justice. Justice is not revenge. Justice is making sure this never happens again." The human fleet moved into position around them. But instead of weapons, they brought food and medicine. Instead of bombs, they brought engineers to help rebuild. Instead of death, they brought something the galaxy had never seen before. They brought mercy. The war crime tribunals began 1 month later. High Commander was the first to stand trial. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Recordings, orders, testimony from his own soldiers. He had commanded the attack on New. He had ordered the bombing of hospitals and schools. He had turned murder into entertainment. The trial was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as human lawyers presented their case. They were calm and professional. They did not shout or threaten. They simply showed the truth. Was found guilty on all charges. The sentence was death. Before his execution, he was given a chance to speak. He looked at the cameras and said nothing for a long moment. "I did not think you would win," he finally said. "I did not think you could win. You were weak. Everyone said so. Everyone was wrong." He looked directly at the humans in the courtroom. "I killed your children and I felt nothing. Now I understand why that was my greatest crime. Not because you were strong enough to punish me, but because they were innocent. They deserved to live. And I took that from them for nothing, for entertainment, for pride." He lowered his head. "I have no excuse. I have no defense. I deserve what comes next." He was executed the next day, quick and painless, more than he had given the children of Nu. Captain Shin attended the execution. She had survived the attack on Nu. She had watched her world burn. She had every reason to want to suffer. But when he died, she felt only emptiness. "Is it over?" asked the young soldier beside her. "This part is over," said, "but we will never forget. We will never let the galaxy forget." 1 year after the war ended, a memorial was built on Nu. It was a simple structure, a long wall of white stone with names carved into it. 2.3 million names. Every person who had died in the attack. General came to the memorial on its opening day. He was retired now, an old man with nothing left but memories. He walked slowly along the wall until he found the names he was looking for. His daughter, his grandson, his granddaughter. He touched each name with his fingers. He did not cry. He had no tears left. He simply stood there, remembering. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I am sorry I could not protect you. I am sorry the war came too late to save you. I am sorry I have to live when you are gone." A hand touched his shoulder. He turned and saw Captain Shin standing beside him. "General," she said softly. "Captain, I did not expect to see you here. This is my home. These were my people." She looked at the wall of names. "I come here every day. I read the names. I remember the faces. Does it help?" "No, but I do it anyway." They stood together in silence, two survivors in a sea of memory. The Galactic Council offered humanity a permanent seat on the High Council. Ambassador accepted the position. On her first day, she addressed the assembled representatives. "We did not want this seat," she said. "We did not want this war. We did not want any of this. We wanted only to live in peace, to trade with our neighbors, to raise our children without fear." She looked around the chamber. Many of the same faces that had laughed at her were still there. They were not laughing now. "But you taught us that peace requires strength. You taught us that kindness can be mistaken for weakness. You taught us that some beings will not stop until they are stopped." She straightened her shoulders. "We will use this seat to protect those who cannot protect themselves. We will use our strength to defend the innocent. We will use our power to ensure that what happened to Nu never happens to anyone else." Her voice grew hard. "And let this be a warning to any who would harm the defenseless. Humanity's patience was not weakness. It was a gift we will never offer again to those who waste it." The chamber was silent. No one laughed. No one dismissed her words. Years passed. The Dominion was dissolved. Their worlds became part of a new alliance, guided by human principles of justice and mercy. Other species joined too, victims of aggression who had never had anyone to protect them. Lieutenant Bay retired from the military and became a teacher. She taught history to young cadets, making sure they understood why humans fought and how humans fought. "We are not warriors by nature," she told her students. "We are farmers and builders and dreamers. We do not love war. We hate it more than any species in the galaxy. That is why we tried so hard to avoid it." She paused, looking at the young faces before her. "But when someone hurts our families, when someone kills our children and laughs, something changes inside us. We become patient. We become prepared. We become absolutely relentless." She smiled slightly. "The galaxy learned this lesson once. Let us hope they never have to learn it again." A young alien historian named visited Earth many years after the war. He wanted to interview Admiral Park, who was now very old and living in a small house by the sea. Admiral asked, "What should the galaxy learn from this war?" Park looked out at the ocean. The waves rolled in and out, eternal and patient. "Humans do not love war," he said. "We hate it more than any species in this galaxy. We know its cost better than anyone. That is why we tried so hard to avoid it." He turned to face the historian. For 120 years we chose patience, we chose diplomacy, we chose hope. The galaxy mistook this for weakness. They laughed at us. They attacked us. They killed our children and called it entertainment. His old eyes were still sharp, still full of fire. But when you hurt our families, when you murder our children and broadcast it as a show, you will learn that our patience was not weakness. It was a gift, a warning, a chance to choose a different path. He looked back at the sea. They wasted that gift. They crossed a line that could not be uncrossed, and the galaxy learned what happens when humans finally decide to fight. Wrote down every word. His article was published across the galaxy. Billions of beings read it and understood. Humans were not warriors by nature. They were patient, kind, and forgiving. They preferred peace to war, diplomacy to violence, understanding to conflict. But they were not weak. They had never been weak. And the galaxy would never forget it. Anew, the memorial wall stood in the sunshine. Parents brought their children to see it. Teachers brought their students to read the names. Visitors from across the galaxy came to pay their respects. And every year on the anniversary of the attack, millions of humans gathered there. They read the names aloud. They remembered the faces. They honored the dead. Then they looked up at the stars and promised themselves that it would never happen again. The galaxy had crossed a line. Humanity had made them pay. And the universe would remember for 1,000 years.